Histories focus on confrontations. Some truth in that, but it hides more persistent things that go on in spite of upheavals.
Persistent things?
What history touches the podcaster in the studio, recording her analysis of Dune while her husband is off somewhere, most likely a conscript, carrying a weapon?
Why is that persistent and more important than...
Her babies at home need food. Man's away on this perennial madness? Someone has to do the podcasting. She's a true image of human persistence.
That's right. Y'all hear that? You're listening to a true image of human persistence right now, according to Frank Herbert.
We're the ones that fucking matter. That's what we have to say about it. We're the heroes. Woo! Welcome to Gom Jabbar, your guide to the iconic world of Dune. We'll be exploring the themes, philosophies, and characters found in the sandy depths of this vast universe, from Frank Herbert's groundbreaking novels to the adaptations on film and TV. My name is Leo.
My name's Abu.
Oh, and today on the show, we are continuing our page-by-page breakdown of Dune Chapterhouse, or Chapterhouse Dune. We are like 10 episodes into this, and I still don't know the order of those words. What a book. We've got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah.
The assigned chapters were thick. Triple C, wormy boy, Leto
Truly.
on his cart thick. But before we get too far into it, let's get our housekeeping out of the way. As usual, this is a book club episode, so there are no spoilers today for any of the books or pages that we've covered thus far. So if you're up to date with the reading that we've assigned, you are safe to listen to everything today. We won't be going beyond the assigned reading.
That's right. And of course, up top, a huge shout out to our Kwisatz Haderach level patrons. That's Daniel Dion, Seth Redden Greer, Brad Hutchins, Kevin Mahanram, and Roger Young. Folks,
yeah.
If I woke up in the night from a terrifying dream induced by Belanda's training,
Typical, yeah.
I would want all five of you there with me to comfort me.
In the bed. Their
In
arms
the bed. Just
across your lap.
Wrap your arms around me, legs across my lap.
Big old pile of patrons.
That's right. That's right. I just want to be dogpiled by our Kwisatz Haderach level patrons in bed.
Dog
in a non-sexual way.
Non-sexual, all romantic.
It's a cute moment because I had a nightmare.
They all in unison go, "Are we going to have sex?" And you go, "Not right now." And they all in unison go, "Okay."
Back to bed.
Back to sleep.
That is a long-winded way of saying thank you. We are grateful from the bottom of our hearts for your support. And of course, our thank yous and our gratitude extend to all of our patrons at every level who truly help make this show possible. We mean that. If you're curious how much we mean that, listen to the State of the Imperium episode from the start of the year. We break down literally how the patrons keep this show running.
The nitty-gritty details, indeed. And listen, hey, if you are not in a position to be a monthly supporter on Patreon, that's totally A-okay. Don't forget, you can still show your support and your appreciation for what we do here at Gom Jabbar with a one-time tip. That link is in the show notes. And for free, you can tell a friend about your favorite Dune podcast and keep your ear to the ground because we've got exciting things coming. The more you support us, word of mouth, it helps a lot.
That's right. Okay. Housekeeping out of the way, y'all know the game plan for these book club episodes. We will begin by summarizing the assigned reading.
Indeed.
Then we'll dive deeper into a takeaway and break down some big ideas. And finally, we will wrap up by chomping down on some delicious spice morsels. That's the game plan. So before we get into it, Leo, let's take a quick break. Dear listener, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're talking Chapterhouse Dune.
Let's do it. Welcome back, everybody. Oh, I hope you enjoyed your break. Let's kick this episode off with chapter 28, which is with Audrade. Now, she has just finished her productivity influencer routine in the morning. She's done her ice bath. She has the tape over her mouth. She's been morning journaling, positivity training, all of that. And they're about to complete their final leg of the journey to the desert to meet Shiana. Now, the growing desert is providing some challenges for their plan. She opted for ground car transport, but the encroaching sands are making that quite difficult. So instead, they're going to use ornithopters. The landscape has been decimated by the creeping sands, a fun kind of callback to the origins of this whole book series. They stopped the moving sands, this inspiration for Dune. Kind of cool. And along the way, spurned by a question from a communications clerk, O'Drade hops onto her little soapbox and gives her entourage a mini TED Talk on over-reliance on other memory without experience, like lived experience to match. Again, something we've talked about quite a bit in this book so far, and something that Frank continues to drive home. They have this great power of other memory, but you don't want to be overly reliant on it. Now, O'Drade signals to everyone, hey, stay back for a second. I'm going to climb this sandhill. And we get this poignant moment of observation as she looks out on the growing sands, on the desert that's growing on Chapterhouse. Quote, she did not look back at growing things making their last desperate struggle against invading dunes, but kept her attention focused outward to the horizon. There was the boundary desert dwellers watched. Anything moving in that dry expanse was potentially dangerous. End quote. Really cool.
Powerful.
I was struck by this for two reasons. One, I think it's just like beautiful writing. I like this reflection on life giving its final kind of thrust as the planet succumbs to the desert. But I also think that a lot of this can be said about this section of the Old Imperium, right? The Old Imperium is being invaded by forces from the scattering. The Honored Matre are like a force of nature. They are primordial. They are in some ways very primitive, but in other ways in touch with their kind of animal nature. They are like the creeping dunes sweeping into the balmy pastures of familiar planets. I really appreciated that kind of parallel. And I think that it's especially poignant because O'Drade is so constantly thinking about that axe-wielding person chasing her down that narrow rope. And here's another metaphor for it, this moment where you're looking out on the desert. But I also wanted to point out this idea of anything moving in that dry expanse was potentially dangerous. I think without context, that could sound fully prohibitive. Like you really want to avoid it because danger's bad, obviously, right?
Right.
But I think the kind of thing that is becoming clear to all of us is that that danger comes alongside the potential for salvation. And avoiding all danger at all costs is what the Bene Gesserit have kind of been doing for 10,000 years, 30,000 years. And that is leading to their extinction. And so there is something about greeting the unknown tomorrow and greeting that unknown, dangerous horizon and saying, out there is potential danger, but is also a path forward and is the golden path.
I think that's a spot on read of this passage because it is notable that the Mother Superior O'Drade does not look back.
Yeah.
She only looks forward. She looks at what needs to be done. She faces the oncoming desert, whatever that may bring, right? The unknown future, not only for Chapterhouse, but on a larger scale of this book,
Yes.
for the Bene Gesserit, for all of humanity.
Yeah.
And that is the great unknown that the Bene Gesserit have turned their backs to for millennia, many millennia. And I think you're absolutely spot on with your interpretation that it is poignant and powerful for O'Drade to stand here and look out on it without turning her back.
This is the woman. The woman who doesn't turn back is the woman who ordered the ocean to be gone, right?
Exactly.
She's the one who's looking forward and going, I'm making the hard decisions that take us to tomorrow and not reveling in the sort of perfect little paradise we've cultivated on this planet.
Exactly.
We can get rid of the paradise for the sake of tomorrow. It's
right.
Very cool. I like it. So as they wait for the ornithopters, O'Drade's introspection on the nature of continuity is interrupted by shocking news. Quote, there has been a messenger from Buzel.
Oh!
Strangers came and took all of the Reverend Mothers away.
Hello.
End quote. Crazy.
The Touche.
The Touche. She's gone. She's been taken along with her Reverend Mother sisters. And O'Drade, not worried. She's giddy. She's like, oh, fuck, yes. The Honored Matre, they took her bait.
Right.
Her plan is proceeding on pace. Of course, this means the abducted Reverend Mothers are in great peril, but hey, she's delighted. It means that there's movement. Something's happening. That's great. So she pulls up a hurried FaceTime call with Belanda
Yeah.
and also quickly realizes what we saw in the last chapter with Belanda, that she's done a full 180 on Duncan.
Yeah.
Odrade's going, hey, you seem like you kind of are chill with Duncan now. And Belanda's like, yeah, you knew I would be. So she talks to Belanda. And during their brief call, they agree that the messenger acolyte that the Tooge sent should be immediately promoted to a Reverend Mother. And that also Duncan should be given full access to the archives. Basically, his limitations to data should be lifted.
Right. Take off the parental controls. Let him go to pornhub.com.
Guided access off any website, not even on private browsing. His history, he's not afraid.
No. I mean, they're already watching him fuck like multiple times a day,
They're
every day with the comm eyes. So it's like, what is there to hide for Duncan, Idaho?
Yeah. He and Murbella, they're looking together. They got a shared interest. It's great. Now, briefly, Tamerlane also makes it known that she's aware that Shiana's basically going to be given her spot. Odrade promises her, listen, I'm not going to do it unless it's the right pick. And Tamerlane's like, whatever, I'm your girl. Like, whatever you want. And it's cool. Tamerlane is really showing herself in these chapters particularly to be Odrade's friend and ally, ride or die.
Yeah, we get a lot of Belanda in this book, and we get very little Tamerlane outside of being in the background and slightly annoying Odrade sometimes. But I think it's in today's chapters where Tamerlane really shines and proves why she is on the inner council of the Mother Superior.
Yeah. And she's more of an advocate for Odrade than I expected, which is kind of nice to see.
Yeah.
Because I like Odrade.
Yes.
Unbiased. Well, anyway, the Thopters arrive. They are taken to the Desert Watch Center, and as Odrade waits for Shiana in her chambers, she observes artwork that Shiana's been kind of hanging around her personal chambers. This is mostly a prefabricated living space, but it's decorated with artwork that Shiana's been doing. And Odrade's thoughts are whirling around the nature of art and nature and where we draw those lines, pun fully intended, before Shiana joins her, basically, in her chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might expect that we, the hosts of Gom Jabbar, and me, one of the hosts who has a degree in art, it's going great, thanks for asking, might have some thoughts about all of this art shit, and you are correct. That's going to be our takeaway today. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk a little bit about art and philosophy. But talking about their meeting, Shiana and Odrade, we get a bit of both women's perspectives throughout this exchange. Odrade knows Shiana is hiding something, and of course Shiana is hiding something and is using her truth and kind of selective truths to divert Odrade's questions, kind of trying to play this mental jujitsu to avoid fully being discovered. She's like, She knows Odrade is a formidable foe in this intellectual sparring match. She's being very, very cautious, and for good reason.
Yeah.
Now, she is called away from their tense conversation by Team 8, who've just returned from the desert.
Yeah.
I love the tone of her voice says volumes. Like, fucking Team 8 always wants my attention.
Right.
God damn it.
This is not SEAL Team 8, to be clear. This is not who you send to kill Bin Laden. No. These fuckers. I want like a little side novella about Team 8 and their bumbling adventures in the desert on Chapterhouse.
Shiana. Hey, Shiana. We didn't find anything again, Shiana. Breaking news, Shiana. We didn't find fucking anything. We saw Shiana. I saw a cactus. Is that something? It's not some fuck. Shiana, quickly. She's like, God damn it, teammate. But this time, not a false call. Boy who cried wolf. Not this time.
Yeah, wow.
Team 8 found a spice mass. There's spices on Chapterhouse. Fucking unbelievable news. And although there are no sightings of worms yet, historically on Arrakis, every time there was a spice mass, there would be worms. Every time. Anyone playing Dune Awakening right now knows you got like 5 minutes max, get the spice, get out. So no one's seen any worms yet, but man, this is a huge step forward. And ultimately, them trying to get a source of spice has been like kind of the fucking point for a long time now, especially since Dune was glassed by the Honored Matre. Now, in the shadow of this news, Odrade springs her job offer on Shiana. Shiana's like, oh my God, there's been a spice mass. And Odrade's like, sick, you're replacing Tamerlane. And she's like, fucking what? On the council? I thought you were building a religion around. Like, didn't you have plans within plans? And O'Drade's like, yeah, but also you're going to be on council. You're going to replace Tamerlane. She's old as hell. Look at her. Tamerlane's like, yeah. It's great. It's a great conversation. Now, Shiana's taken aback. And in that vulnerable moment, O'Drade probes again. Quote, tell me, Shiana, what really interests you these days? End quote. A question with the weight of humanity on it. And
Truly.
Shiana gets away with a partial truth. She's like, sex. Love having sex with men like Trebo. You saw him basking in the sunlight,
Right.
a hot young man.
Woo!
And O'Drade seems to accept this and departs. We'll see in a later chapter. She's still very suspicious and she knows Shiana's still hiding something, but she leaves it at that.
Right.
Now the chapter ends and we get to see what Shiana is actually hiding. And this is nuts.
This is crazy.
First, we get her backup excuse, what she would have said if O'Drade had pressed her further. That she and Duncan are discussing sexually imprinting Teg, the child, the 9-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
Shiana is talking about sexually imprinting Teg because that would be less cruel and less pain than the kind of traditional way that they know, where you push someone's psyche to a breaking point. That seems unnecessarily cruel. And clearly Murbella, when she attempted to imprint Duncan, awoken Duncan's memories, they're thinking maybe the same can be done for Teg.
Right.
That's like the backup excuse. The more incredible reveal is that Shiana, along with Duncan, have figured out a way to reactivate the no ship's flight systems.
Oh my God.
And deactivate the various traps that Belanda has set on the ship that would prevent it from leaving.
Holy shit.
They have a getaway car.
They do.
Or they at least know how to arm the getaway car.
Mm-hmm.
I like this because we got little clues of Duncan looking at the no ship schematics a couple of times in previous chapters.
Right.
And him quickly hiding it and being like, yeah, what do you want, Belanda? And now we kind of get a sense of like, oh, that's what they've been doing this whole time.
Yeah.
Is studying the build of the ship and understanding where the traps are. Very fun. And that is the end of chapter 28.
Okay, moving on to chapter 29. In this chapter, we join Murbella and Duncan in the middle of the night. No, they're not having sex. They're sleeping. Get your mind out of the gutter, but also that makes sense that you would assume that they are doing that a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Murbella awakens from a terrible nightmare that she's having thanks to her recent training with Belanda.
Mm-hmm.
She wakes up clearly in a panic. And her fear, weirdly enough, turns into hysterical laughter, which jogs Duncan motherfucking Idaho awakes, who was sleeping right next to her.
Right.
And this leads to a really genuinely touching conversation between the two of them that reveals to us, once again, that there is love here. It isn't just pure animalistic sexual attraction.
Right.
Or honored matre sexual subjugation going both ways.
Right.
There seems to be real deal feelings that have maybe built up over the last decade. These two have been trapped together.
Yeah. I mean, early on in their relationship, there was almost an animosity where Murbella's going, fuck you for imprisoning me in this sexual binding.
Yeah.
But now it's sweet. It's sweet. Really,
yeah.
I can tell Frank is writing from experience with his past, with Beverly. And this, the dialogue felt very coupley for me.
It's very coupley, yeah. I mean, Duncan at one point literally says, quote, like a damned old married couple. Funny stories in the middle of the night, end quote. He's like, oh, you're waking me up and now we're just chatting in the middle of the night? Like, what are we, married or something?
We only have 4 children together.
Yeah, right. For real. So Murbella continues to sort of tell him about the nightmares that she's having, and she describes the experience. And he's like, oh, yeah. That's an old Zensuni technique that rids trainees of their trauma and unconscious responses. It's like a classic thing. I went through it myself. Don't worry about it. And Murbella, continues to worry about it.
Right.
She's got a deep distrust for Bene Gesserit methods, especially ones that use language as a means of control, aka the voice.
Right.
And this is where Duncan reminds her, though, that, quote, they'll never trust you into the deeper training until you learn this, end quote. Like this is just part of the steps you need to take, and the baggage of your honored matre fears you need to let go of.
Right.
The honored matres had warned Marbella, for example, when she was younger, against anything Zensuni related.
Right, yeah.
So this is something she's got to overcome and get through in order for the Bene Gesserit to continue her training and fully trust her.
Right.
Now, as the conversation continues, Duncan sort of is like, what are we doing? Oh, we talking? We sleeping? Or
we fucking?
Other stuff?
We fucking?
Oh, we fucking? And Marbella's like, no, we're not doing that last thing. And so Duncan immediately takes a deep sigh, rolls over, and is like, all right, I'm going back to sleep then.
Yeah. Half mumbling responses. It's
like half mumbling responses. Marbella's like, is this motherfucker falling back asleep while he's talking to me?
She's shaking him.
Right. But, she's persistent. She's like, no, I really want to talk to you and get some feelings out. And so, he's like, all right, I'm awake. I guess we're talking then. We're not doing the sleeping or the other thing.
All right. We'll talk.
And this discussion is sort of all-encompassing. It meanders through a bunch of different themes and ideas that at this point I feel like we've hammered home 12.5 times. They cover things like Marbella's Bene Gesserit training. They talk about Teg's awakening, and it's clear that Marbella has sort of sussed together that Shiana may be involved with some of Duncan's schemes around Teg. Marbella also reveals that the possibility of seducing Scytale has come up, and it's something that both of them are clearly repulsed by in kind of an old-fashioned way. Again, married couple way. They're like, wait, I don't know that I want you sleeping with anyone else. I know the Bene Gesserit just kind of do that casually, and it's part of your training, but like, I'm not comfortable with that. And Marbella was like, yeah, no, same. I also don't want to do that. Now, Duncan also touches on, again, another theme I feel like we've touched on a lot in the course of the last 2 books, this idea of historians and the cynicism around history and how it doesn't capture the full picture of the truth, quote unquote, or the full picture of human experience. Quote, the self-important have limited vision because they ride a death reality. Woman and plow are life reality. Without life reality, there'd be no humankind. My tyrant saw this. The sisters bless him for it, even while they curse him. End quote.
Yeah, I loved that quote, and I think partially because we also now know when Duncan's awakening to this serial life, one of the things that Frank emphasized with his writing are these countless little life moments, kicking up your feet at the end of a long day, shared words with a lover, like these little moments, the accumulation of these little moments. Now, as a serial Gola, Duncan has that death moment ingrained in his psyche. So Duncan's kind of in the perfect position to, one, not only appreciate those myriad life moments, but also to see the sort of cynical reality of dying over and over. And, how many rebellions did he attempt to lead against the tyrant?
Right.
That he personally led, that he personally failed and accomplished nothing. Duncan is the perfect cynic for military as a solution for things. And I can't help but think about Frank in the late 70s, 80s, writing this, following the Vietnam War, following like the narrative around America's warmongering path, like that feels very imbued in the text here in a way that I really appreciate. That he's talking about, the historians are always focusing on, there's this war, this battle. And like, I kind of get it. Again, it is kind of the history of this country, but man, the invisible, beautiful little moments of people just living and making art. And like, it's like, that is only a piece of the puzzle. It's weird that there aren't like cultural museums that focus on the history of the people and the culture.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of feel the cynicism that Duncan has in this moment, and I share it. And I'm like, I also think it runs parallel to O'Drade's appreciation of art and music, right? Like that these are the moments, the moments that people are living and celebrating life rather than writing that death reality, as he puts it.
Yeah.
Constantly conscripted with a weapon out battling for, new glory or something.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm a little less cynical and a little less in agreement with Duncan and O'Drade and generally Frank here on this like hatred of history. Hatred's too strong a word. This like distrust of history that's been a theme throughout the last two books, but generally speaking, this has probably been around since like book 3, 4. This idea has been seeded. Because I think like the reality is like if it bleeds, it leads is kind of true as far as like news goes. It's like, what are the stories we're going to tell ourselves? Stories have beginnings, middle, and ends, and they contain conflict and they contain resolution. Those are the stories that humanity has passed down across generations. And inevitably, those stories will be about the conflicts or the deaths or the heroic moments. And it won't be about, for example, the quieter moments that Duncan is trying to get at here about the single mother plowing the fields to feed her children. That's important. That's an important part of the fabric of humanity, certainly. But it is not necessarily the story that we will tell ourselves as humans or the stories that will be written down. Do I think they're important? Absolutely. But I think to say that you shouldn't rely on what is the stories we do tell because they don't encompass these other things, it's a bit of a closed-minded approach to history. And you know, I'm sure Frank would argue with me on that point and say that he's not speaking in absolutes. He's saying that
of course.
You should be skeptical of history and not assume this is the
complete
picture, right? Which again, I would agree with him on that. But I think there is something to be said for the natural human inclination to tell stories about conflict.
Yeah,
because that is the type of species we are. That's what's defined us since day one.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Also, you look at the myths that we've invented out of nothing, wholesale fabric, and we say these gods battled those titans, it's war, it's conflict, it's violence. It's like, if we're going to push in a direction, I think pushing the pendulum more toward there is a picture that is not captured by historians, I think that's beneficial to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So I think Frank's being pretty heavy-handed at times in this book. But I do appreciate the perspective for sure.
Yeah, I do too as well, certainly. Anyway, returning to this chapter summary, there you go, folks, a little mini takeaway in the middle of that chapter summary. In a particularly shocking moment, Marbella opens up about her past. This I found incredibly fascinating. I loved this moment.
Yeah.
She tells the story about how she was captured as a child by the Honored Matre. And seemingly, this is the norm for the Honored Matre. They come in, they subjugate / wipe out / abduct a population and the ones they want to bring into their fold from that population. Marbella's parents were killed, seemingly in front of her. They were blown up. And she was abducted and brought into the Honored Matre fold. She was trained in their methods and their worldview, and she has been an Honored Matre ever since she was a little girl.
Yeah. And
Duncan points out to Marbella that it seems like all she's really done is she has traded one set of masters for another. You've left the Honored Matre, sure, but are you truly free? Because now your masters are just Bene Gesserit, and you're being trained in their ways. You're just being indoctrinated into another system.
Right.
I don't know that necessarily means you've escaped anything or that you're actually free as a human being. And it's at this point that Marbella sort of brings up the agony. Throughout this chapter, there's also like a deep sense of sadness where Duncan is realizing truly how far Marbella has become indoctrinated into the Bene Gesserit fold and how he is losing her.
Yeah.
And the agony is sort of the final point.
Yeah.
Where he believes once she undergoes the agony, I will lose her forever. She will then be a Bene Gesserit sister and a reverend mother.
Right.
And Marbella sort of recognizes this as well. The agony comes up in their conversation, and she tells Duncan, that is when I will know and understand what the sisterhood is truly up to. But the way she sees it is that's not where I will lose all of my freedom. That is when I will be able to negotiate more strongly. Right now, we're in a position of weakness. We are prisoners to these people.
Right.
But once I'm a reverend mother, once I'm fully accepted into their sisterhood, then I will have the weight to throw around and fully negotiate. I don't know that Duncan necessarily sees it that way.
No, and it's interesting because both of them are thinking, if only they understood, right? She's going, I want to demand they tell me why they need me. And he's going, be careful, they might actually tell you. You don't get it. You don't know them like I do.
Yeah.
He understands Bene Gesserit better than almost anyone in history.
Right.
Meanwhile, she's going, if only he knew their morality. If only he could see through the veil like I do. And I don't think either are objectively wrong.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I don't think either are disillusioned, but they're only seeing pieces of the puzzle. And we'll have to see how it shakes out. But I got major Paul from Dune Messiah vibes throughout this, of Duncan seeing this like no-win scenario. The person he loves, that he cannot imagine living without, is heading toward this path of no longer being accessible to him.
Yeah.
Either because the agony kills her, or because she survives the agony, and now has other memory and becomes this frozen, cold, distant Reverend Mother, the way they all are. They're freezing my sweet Marbella, right? They're it's so tragic, and yet it is also kind of like a path forward, and there's risk there, and the temptation for all of these characters who know better to cling to now and to say, I want this forever. I want this status of us being together forever is interesting too.
Yeah.
It's like deeply human that he wants to have that intimacy forever.
Right.
And he can't.
He loves her. In this chapter, they both openly say, I love you to each other. And I think ultimately neither of them wants to lose each other. And yet they see two different and somewhat opposing paths forward. And it's tough to reconcile that.
Yeah. I love you too much. That's my agony. What a Hallmark card. What a charmer.
Line. Duncan motherfucking Idaho.
Right to the heart, Duncan. Shit.
Dude, it makes sense. Sometimes like little bits of Duncan's charm leak through and you're like, oh, it makes sense why you're like such a womanizer. Jesus Christ. If somebody said that to me, I'd be like, yeah, cool. When's our wedding? What the fuck?
Yeah, I do. I mean, sorry.
I mean, what?
Sorry. Fuck. I do? Shit.
I know. God. What a smooth motherfucker. Okay. The chapter ends. This I thought was really powerful given the conversation about, are you really free? Have you traded one master for another? The chapter ends as Marbella has this moment glimpsing what it would mean to awaken, to embrace true freedom. Quote, far more important to find that place in herself where freedom lived. It was a place where something always listened. End quote. And by God, if that place doesn't sound like Sea Child.
Yeah. Oh, shit. That's actually a great segue to bring up something that someone pointed out in our live chat, that the black plaz, that something kind of that hint of something inside of Shiana that really upset O'Drade in the previous chapter could be seen as this kind of like void of that nothingness. And what O'Drade was hoping Shiana could find inside of herself is something like Sea Child, this human grounding thing. And instead it's void. Instead it's this upsetting thing. She sees that and she goes, tell me that you didn't sculpt that. And Shiana's like, oh, I did just a few days ago. Isn't it great? And O'Drade thinks to herself, she's more further gone than I could have thought. It's this kind of fear, this fear response.
I mean, for me, it's not even that deep. It's just being in touch with your humanity in a way that the sisterhood has trained you to lose touch with. And especially once you've gone through the agony, especially once you have how many billions, millions, trillions of other sisters in your head talking to you all the time. Through other memory. It is easy to like get a 30,000 foot view of everything and lose touch with the grounded human experience of actually living and being in touch with Sea Child, being in touch with the sea, being in touch with the love and the emotions that make you human. I think Marbella is recognizing here, maybe in a way that Duncan is assuming she will lose. Marbella is recognizing, if I hold on to that, if I hold on to my love for Duncan, if I hold on to my humanity, even after the agony, even after everything the sisterhood trains me to do, that is where I find true freedom. That is where I am not indoctrinated to them. That is where I am embracing who I am fully.
Yeah. Interesting. We're a lot to chew on.
Yeah.
Okay. Our final chapter today jumps forward in time, months. And while some things have changed, others are still frustratingly stagnant. That's the name of the game in this book. On the one hand, Shiana has just been confirmed to replace Tamerlane. It's taken months, folks. Bureaucracy, government moves slowly. But she is now confirmed to replace Tamerlane. Tamerlane, in fact, cast the breaking vote, which is kind of fun. The Touge, her acolyte, now Reverend Mother Fintil.
Nice.
Nice. She went through the agony and everything. And Murbella, gonna give birth in about 8 days. Very exciting.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's been months, still have not seen any worm sign. They are still unsure of what Shiana's hiding, still not really sure what her secret is, and there's been no word from the Touge. No word about the honored matre having taken that bait. No idea what's going on. Odrade's thoughts summarize the passing of time. Quote, everything upon which they pinned their hopes lay in terrible suspension, and nightmare hunters crept closer. Tensions accumulated, explosive. End quote.
Right.
And the reader is like, yeah, yeah, I want something to happen. Come on, Frank.
Right.
Now, Odrade is late for her meeting with Scytale, and for the rest of the chapter, we see the two spar. This is a very eventful chapter in some ways. The last Tleilaxu master is quickly running out of hope that any of his dreams, his plans within plans, will pay out and have any kind of real legs to stand on.
Yeah.
Without him, of course, having to give more to the sisterhood. He's kind of been hoping, I've given them everything I absolutely had to, and now I can just get. And it's clear to him now that that is not the case. At times, Odrade tries this trick of slipping into the Islamiyat, like holy language of the Tleilaxu,
Right.
but it's also clear that that trick of softening him only gets so far. It doesn't really do that much for her.
Yeah.
And back in her office, they really turn up the pressure, right? Tamerlane gives an Oscar award-winning fucking performance, so theatrical, standing close behind him, the picture of the like ominous Reverend Mother.
Just hovering.
Fucking awesome. I forgot this fully. They are growing golas of Scytale.
Wild. I mean, it makes sense, but
Like-
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, we just want to make sure. So yeah, we've got backup you. What, we don't want to fucking accidentally kill you or something. Watch yourself, kid. You know, we get more of Scytale's backstory as well. He basically sought out Futar protection from the honored matre. He was betrayed by some of the returned face dancers from the scattering, and how they fled to Junction, hoping for Chom or Spacing Guild protection, where they were picked up by the Bene Gesserit. Nevertheless, even with this new information, even with the pressure they've dialed up, even with the holy words of the Islamiyat, they are still effectively in a stalemate until their stalemate fucking explodes
Oh my
with
God.
news from Belanda. Say it for the people in the back. We've got worms.
Worm sign.
Worms. We got worm sign. Not only do we have worm sign, you're like, wait, well, maybe this is just a joke. Maybe this is a ploy. This is plans within plans. No, Shiana enters with a fucking worm. She brings a worm into the office. What an entrance. That's right. The Bene Gesserit officially have sandworms. Thousands of small sandworms turned up at the Spice Blow, and Belanda makes it very clear what this means for the Tleilaxu master. Quote, you have lost a bargaining chip,
Yeah,
Master
no
Scytale.
shit.
We have our spice at last. End quote.
Huge.
I love how petty Belanda is. She's so like, yeah, fuck
Right.
you, Scytale. Double middle fingers before her hollow like disperses. So good. God damn. What's more, Shiana demonstrates immediately that she can still control the sandworms. Huge. This little sandworm in the pod, she opens the pod and holds it like a baby in her arms, and it's chill. It's listening to her. It's responding to her.
Yeah.
It's a big floppy baby. This is huge. Things are finally looking up for the Bene Gesserit. And Odrade uses this moment to really push Scytale. With Chapterhouse on its way to becoming a new Dune, what are you waiting for? Dude, serve the prophet. Here's the prophet.
Yeah.
You claim this great belief.
Right.
Here's the prophet.
Do you not believe in the prophet?
Do you not? The prophet's listening. Look at the prophet wiggling around. That's the prophet. You going to hurt the prophet's feelings? Its floppy little feelings?
It's just a baby.
It's just a little baby.
This is a baby. You're not going to do what the baby wants. Saitel?
Baby prophet?
Saitel, you're a bitch.
that was actually Belanda again.
Yeah, opened up the FaceTime again just to say that. Oh, by the way.
Fuck you. Hey, fuck you. Anyway, so he's on the verge of a panic attack. Like there's something about the idea of a new Dune that really upsets him. And it's clear also that he's like, oh, fuck, I need them still, but they don't need me anymore. They needed me for secrets of the axolotl tanks to make artificial spice, but they don't need me anymore. They've got sandworms. They did it. They seeded a new planet. They did something no one's been able to do ever.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it.
Monumental.
And he requests time to think. He's like, I got to think about this. This is a lot. So he goes off to the no ship. Now, the Reverend Mothers, they put their heads together. They evaluate and assess the new data they've gathered from this Tleilaxu master and what it means for the Bene Gesserit. In short, they all come together. They realize the creators of the Futars, the team that the Touge was approached by, that she worked with, they hope to control the Bene Gesserit. This is a new player in the game. This is a new hand moving pieces. With this new data and this better understanding of the chessboard, things are finally looking up for the Bene Gesserit. Odrade thinks, quote, give us Merbella as a sister and a restored Bashar, then we might have our fighting chance.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Maybe the first hopeful thing Odrade has said all book.
Yeah. She sees, she's on this tightrope with the fucking axe-wielding person behind her, and she sees the distant cliff. She's like, I can see survival. And then, listener, I hope you're sitting, because we have some absolutely devastating news. The best character in the book. And maybe all of fiction, honestly. Clarby, my sweet, my dear, the best driver on this goddamn planet, was mortally injured.
What?
I know. Take a breath. Take a deep breath. We're going to get through this together. He was mortally injured in an ornithopter crash. Dear God, not Clarby. Don't take Clarby from me.
Mm-hmm.
The path to saving him is clear. They know how to save him. They can do it. They have the technology. They have the means. They have to make him a cyborg. But this is a complicated call. Lots of tensions, making it a loaded decision. This is still a post-Butlerian universe. And Odrade has to really decide, are we going to pull this really severe emergency lever for driver Clarby?
Yeah.
And this culminates in the greatest two words that Odrade has ever or will ever speak.
I can see this scene in my mind. The cinematic moment, the flourish of the music, the way she says it, the way the camera turns, I can see it.
She pushes the button. She leans forward. Quote, cyborg him. End quote. We will not make machine in the image of a man, but you will make a verb out of the word cyborg.
Cyborg
Fuck yes,
him.
cyborg him. Cyborg him. He's the best. And listen, listeners. I know this all seems very dramatic. The camera that Abu is describing, the music, the swell, the orchestration. Hans Zimmer scored just this one scene.
Right. The piano is on fire and he's still going.
He's still playing. The piano is burning as he plays. It's burning his hands. It's obvious you do not yet understand how good of a driver this fucking guy is. Clarby. Clarby is the best. He's the best. If you don't understand, it's because you are wrong. Right. Clarby's the best character.
Consider this, dear listener. Have you ever been late to anything in your life? Because that would never happen with Clarby.
Would never happen with Clarby. On time, dropped off in front of the door, not a block down the street. Never. Clarby's the best.
Have you ever not found a parking spot when you desperately needed to? Never with Clarby.
A parking spot every single time. Cyborg him. Bring him back from the brink of death. Cyborg him. Clarby. He's the hope of the universe.
Hilarious.
The chapter ends on this moment, but I do want to say, kind of more seriously, that this is another sign of how thinly stretched the Bene Gesserit have become.
Truly.
Clarby is a driver, and yet he is mortally wounded, and they go, we have to save him because we don't have other people who can do what he can do. And it's just fucking driving. He's a pilot, but we don't have other pilots. We are down to our last pilot. What are we going to do? So this is in some ways it's very fun. Probably the best quote in Dune. Cyborg him is so funny. If anybody wants to get matching cyborg him tattoos, let's do it. But I think this is meant to be a sobering moment that kind of dampens the feeling of celebration. We can see our path to success, but holy shit, we are short-staffed. And any little mistake is going to really force us to make some hard decisions.
Yeah. And to turn our backs on thousands and thousands and thousands of years of the status quo since the fucking Butlerian Jihad.
Yeah.
Cyborgs have seemingly not existed outside of, the occasional lawbreaker here and there, and potentially the Ixians doing whatever they want on their planet.
Right.
But this is a huge decision for the Bene Gesserit to make because it potentially opens the floodgates. How do you un-cyborg him going forward now, right?
Once you cyborg that genie, there's no putting the genie back.
There isn't. And how do you convince the next guy who's mortally wounded to not want to get cyborged? He's going to be like, you fucking did it for Clairby. Am I not good enough? I'm suddenly not good enough to get cyborg. Clairby's standing right fucking there. So, this is truly an opening of the floodgates. You do not go back. Once you step into a cyborg universe, you do not go back. Interesting set of chapters. I think for me, I will say before we wrap up and transition over to our takeaway, this was a mixed bag of chapters.
Oh, yeah.
I think at the risk of sounding like a broken record, if I was Frank's editor, I would say, my guy, trim some of this down. You've already made this point like 12 fucking times in this book and another dozen times in the last book. You don't need to say the thing again. And I found myself kind of deeply frustrated on every read of these chapters.
Yeah.
And so I think the chapters like this, and in particular Heretics and Chapterhouse, a big reason why they don't rank higher up on my personal list of favorite Dune stories is because they get a little self-indulgent. They get a little too much Frank Herbert self-insert my political or philosophical ideology and then repeat it a dozen more times over and over again before the plot actually moves forward. The end of chapter 30 is where the plot begins to get back on track and move forward, right? The worm is here. Shiana's here.
Yeah.
The negotiations with Scytale have progressed to a new point. They've been in this stalemate for hundreds of pages now.
Yeah.
And so loved the end of chapter 30, loved Cyborg him. I frankly could have actually lost the previous two chapters personally, or like dramatically cut them down and merge them into like one sort of chapter, some sort of edits. So I've expressed this sentiment before. I expressed it back in Heretics. This is nothing new here, but I think, again, I just wanted to call it out. Irregular pacing of these last two books where things seem to really slow down and circle the drain for a long, long, long time.
Yeah. I enjoyed these chapters, but it is also true that like the experience of reading them felt like a slog. And it's interesting to have that dichotomy within me because like in the first chapter, I really enjoyed O'Drade's thoughts about art. And I really enjoyed, it's like these are, kind of an interesting conversation. And the one that we're going to return to for our takeaway that I don't know that I've heard before. And to see where Shiana's at and this, the spice blow, it's like good stuff happened in that chapter.
I
but
agree.
It's true that getting through it was something I had to choose to do. The next chapter, Marbella and Duncan, was a long chapter. There was a lot going on there. But I also think it's some of Frank's best interpersonal writing. I felt their relationship really come through in their conversation. I even left in the script a note that I think that chapter with them would be an excellent audio adaptation because there's that kind of intimacy between them.
I agree.
And the fact that like she's talking and he's barely listening and she's kind of on her own train of thoughts. It's very naturalistically written. And I can see Frank really injecting humanity into these characters where both of them have their perspectives, their worries, their concerns. They're not seeing the whole of each other's pictures. But I also love a comment that was in our live chat. Nothing is more real than taking 10 years to open up about your trauma to your partner. So funny, but felt very real to me. And I loved, when she's telling the story about being captured by the Honored Matre, and Duncan says he's transported to this moment with her. He's seeing her as a child hiding from the explosions that are killing her family. It's like, man, that's so visceral. And then, of course, this final chapter ending on Cyborg him is like the greatest chapter in any book ever. Because again, Clareby, best character in all of books. So it is this kind of interesting balance where I'm like, it was exhausting getting through the last 2 chapters, but I still stand by the fact that like I really enjoyed parts of them and got things out of them that were not, I think, in the rest of the book.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because you and I, we constantly kind of have this push and pull where you appreciate the like, okay, here's the intention here. Maybe it's not done perfectly, but like I still feel it's necessary because XYZ, it speaks to this emotional core, et cetera, et cetera. And I approach a lot of things from like a very zoomed out, like editor/producer lens where I'm like, I get that you're trying to do a good thing here. And I even recognize the good thing you're doing here. I just think if we zoom out as a whole picture, as a whole book, it could use a bit of trimming. You know, you could cut to lose some of the good and it'll still be good, you know? And so like, I think you and I, even in our Gom Jabbar work, we always have these push and pulls in our script where you're like, I wrote a 10-page thing and I'm like, that's so good, Leo. That's so good. It could really be a 5-page thing, you know?
The number of Leo script pages on the fucking cutting room floor, dear listeners, you have no idea.
Could be a whole nother 6 years of Gom Jabbar.
Sabu. Sabu's the reason. But that's the reason our conversations are like tight and guided. Yeah.
As much as we butt heads on it occasionally, I think it's actually also some of the X factor for us. It's some of our juice.
1,000%.
It's like what makes us able to have the really nitty gritty in-depth convo. And then also zoom out and be like, but we got to make a good product and a good show at the end of the day. Let's move on. And like that balancing act is very difficult to do. And so, you know, honestly, like I'm talking out here like I know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Sure.
I've never written a best-selling sci-fi series. So who the fuck am I to give Frank Herbert notes on how he writes his books, you know?
But that's also where I think it's very valid to be like, listen, I wanted to stop reading this chapter. I love this book series more than most people love anything. And yet, man, this chapter was a lot to get through. And it's like, that's valid. I think that's valid above everything else. And now you can say, what's the solution to that? And maybe the solution is something that you personally own. And you say, okay, me, Leo, the reader, I need to do a little bit more work to understand why this chapter is challenging for me. Maybe I'm not looking at it in the right lens. And I think,
definitely.
I remember playing Last of Us Part 2 and fucking hating the game devs until I did some of that like work. And then I was like, oh wait, this is a masterpiece. And I think like that is something that I'm very comfortable doing as kind of a second nature thing. I also will admit I get such imposter syndrome sometimes where I'm like, fuck, I went on such a tangent there and that's definitely going to get cut and blah, blah, blah. But then I have to remind myself, it's like, oh yeah, some of our best, weirdest conversations that are like really like meaty and like fun were just those little tangents. So
absolutely,
release the Leo cut is ridiculous. Yeah, the studio always cuts my shit. No, it's good. Because again, I think when you I can't listen to some podcasts because they're so rambly and so unfocused. And I think that's 100% you, Abu. You keep us on track.
It's a delicate balancing act for sure.
Always.
And I think we work great as a team is what I'm saying. And I love you so much.
I love you too.
We should
take an ad break.
We should take an ad break. I gotta wipe some tears.
I mean, I'm crying because Clareby was hurt. I don't want Clareby to hurt. Oh, well, those are our chapter summaries. We are going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. When we're back, we're talking about the nature of art. You are not going to want to miss this conversation. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, folks. We're really tempting fate with our takeaway today. This episode is already so long, and our takeaway today is about art. Maybe our favorite subject to go long on. So buckle the fuck up.
Yeah. Yep.
Here we go.
Yeah.
For our takeaway, we want to dig deeper and unpack Odrade's thoughts as she is scanning Shiana's room in the Desert Watch Center before Shiana shows up. Because as usual, Frank Herbert is working on multiple levels here, and he's using this relatively short scene to tell us a lot about the Bene Gesserit sisterhood in universe, but then also out of universe, he's using the moment to ask some deeply philosophical questions about art itself. So we want to talk about all that and share our own feelings on it. and unpack it a bit further together.
Indeed. Now, the scene begins as Odrade enters Shiana's room and observes this prefabricated space, how it has this personal touch. A black and white line drawing of a sandworm catches her attention. Now, Odrade admires the simplicity of the drawing and what it reveals about her former pupil. Quote, admirable restraint and a constant reminder of why she was here. A deep impression of nature. End quote. Admirable restraint, something Abu thinks Frank needs more of. Now, this leads Odrade down this philosophical rabbit hole. Quote, nature makes no bad art? It was a statement too glib to accept. What do we mean by nature? End quote. What do we mean indeed?
Indeed.
And she thinks of the various atrocious things she's seen in nature, repellent things, seemingly without any purpose. Quote, blind worms, slimy yellow skins.
Blech.
Where was the art in them? Temporary stopping place on evolution's journey elsewhere. End
That
quote.
is savage.
Brutal to the blind worms. Justice for the
Yeah, for
blind
real.
worms? They are the end destination. They respond. What do they have but evolutionary pressure? Odrade, rude.
So rude.
Also, you're saying that evolution journeys somewhere. That's your interpretation. You're bringing that to the table. It just is what it is. You know, like, I think that it's funny. This is kind of the whole point of all of this. But the idea that, like, even the definition of nature is one that is beholden to our language and the way that we engage with it.
Right.
When we talked about farmers, what do farmers do but reshape the natural world for the benefit and for the purpose of humanity?
Right.
What does it mean for something to be good art or bad art? Like, all of this is through a humanistic lens.
Right.
And this is where she wonders, is the deciding factor in all of this human intervention?
Oh.
Is it the humanity that decides whether or not things are good or bad? Is it interfacing with nature? Are the disgusting yet delicious slig meat, slig steaks, are they art because humans created them? Are they good art because we made them? Are they bad? That's the question. Where does good and bad fall when we're evaluating the natural world and humanity's input into it?
Right.
And Odrade decides that some combinations offend our human senses, these kind of deep impulses that we use to guide ourselves.
Right.
Which leads to this deeply meta thought, clearly written just directly in Frank's voice. Frank's like, get out of here, Odrade.
Odrade,
I'm
Chamaine,
talking.
whatever.
I'm
I
talking
got something to say here.
Quote, much of what we think of as art caters to desires for reassurance. Don't offend me. I know what I can accept. End quote.
Wow. There is so much to peel back there. So many layers to just that sequence of thoughts from Odrade.
Yeah.
And I think even more fundamentally, stepping back from even if art is good or bad, I think an even more fundamental question that Odrade / Frank is pondering on here is, how do we define what is art and what isn't art in the first place before we even get to the conversation of good, bad, middling, etc.
Right. You know, people go, oh, a banana taped to the wall isn't art. And you go, well, you are talking about it. It's starting a conversation. You have opinions. It's questioning the whole fucking nature of why we have these institutions putting shit on walls. It's like, oh man. And we never got to like simple answers, but that's kind of the answer, is that there is no simple definition of, and that's kind of the point of this takeaway as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the heart of this philosophical question is Odrade asking that.
Right.
And the examples she laid out are part of this fundamental question. Are the repellent things, like those disgusting blind worms that I just dragged through the mud?
Yeah, fuck them. I mean, God, they
fuck
suck.
those blind worms. The disgusting things that we find in nature around us, or even the disgusting things that we humans create, like those fucking sligs.
Ugh, sligs.
Folks, a slig is a slug.
Pig.
It's a pig-sized slug, to be clear.
Yeah. Sweetest meat this side of heaven.
Are either of those things, the disgusting meat or the disgusting blind worm, definable as art in the first place, if we're so disgusted by them, whether or not we created them or they were born naturally? And that kind of leads to what I think is kind of a core debate within the sisterhood. Does art always have to have a purpose? Do the blind worms do anything? And does art always have to speak to our human sensibilities? If our human sensibilities are disgusted by the thought of a pig-sized slug, is that art or is it not? And if it's not, how do we categorize it, right? Like, what do we call a thing that falls outside of those buckets? Something that doesn't have purpose and something that offends our human sensibilities.
Right.
Can we even call that art? And I think Frank is maybe asserting here through this exploration through Odrade's thoughts that we humans have sort of a natural bias toward naming only pleasant creations as art, right? Things that have purpose and speak positively to our human sensibilities.
Yeah.
And maybe we do that at the expense of ignoring the ugly or misunderstood things in the world, whether they are naturally occurring or created by humanity.
Yeah.
I think at the same time, though, Odrade's thoughts to me don't read as a total condemnation of how we define art.
Sure.
Because Odrade does observe that humanity's earliest experiences judge these things for us, right? This is bad, scary, no, or this is good, this speaks to my sensibilities. And human evolution does give us this like inclination toward or against certain things in nature. And so I think there is an acknowledgement from Frank and Odrade here that, yes, perhaps we can be too hasty in defining what is and isn't art, but that hastiness does come from sort of natural human inclinations.
Yeah, or delineating what is like cultural aesthetic and what is like specific to I was raised in the West, and so I've listened to this type of music and blah, blah, blah. Like there is this sound that sounds harmonious, this music sounds good to my ear, and this music sounds bad. That might be culturally formed. And then there are sounds like a baby crying or a loud explosion or the crackle of thunder that touch something more deep and more human and more animal within us.
Yeah.
We have sense responses that are evolutionarily focused, you know, a fear of spiders, right? You can say it's not just that I was taught by Western society that spiders are scary. There is like a evolutionary reason to be upset by little scurrying things that might bite you and kill you.
Yeah.
So that delineation is interesting and is important.
Yes.
Because you might find something revolting because it's outside of your culture. And then you might be quick to say, but that's just revolting for revolting's sake. No, that's making you take a look at your culture. I think about this a lot with the sexuality in these books, where people said these books are horny. And then you look at it and it's not glorifying talking about the swell of breasts and the hard, erections and blah. It's like they have sex. And you go, is the inclusion of sex, period, making this book smut? I don't think so. And I think it's a puritanical approach to say they talk about sex, it's a horny book. And I think that forces you a little bit to step outside of your cultural lens and go, oh, maybe as an American, I'm just uncomfortable because so much of media gets rid of it entirely to be safe. And to get rated correctly so that you can have the widest possible audience by the corporate people in charge. So I think delineating those two lenses is really cool and is really interesting. And some of the best art does that. That says, hey, this reminds you of terrifying natural things that maybe you're upset about regardless of what culture you come from. And then some of these things might only be upsetting to you because you're from this culture or because you have this experience. And that's a really interesting balance point. And I think that's kind of Odrade's point, at least in some part here, right?
Yeah. Whether or not you think the creation of a slig is art, it may offend your senses, but it is still something you have to recognize exists. And maybe, as you're saying, then actually question your own revulsion to it. Why am I having this reaction to it? And at the same time, that reaction is innate. You can't help but have that reaction because you are human. And something in humanity's past has trained us to look at a pig-sized slug and go, ew. And both of those things can be true. Yeah. And I think in the context of art, that is a very interesting debate to have.
Yeah. And again, also, it's like, okay, so do you need to always be consuming art? It's like the same people who say, I only read when it's like, productivity maxing, like nonfiction books. And it's like, you're allowed to fucking read books about wizards, dog.
Dude.
Like, life's not that goddamn serious.
Dude.
I think it's the same frustrating impulse where they say, oh, any media should be art, and it all should all challenge and grow and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, listen, I have a degree in it. I agree. It's a time and a place. And I think more people should get comfortable. I think media literacy and an understanding of art analysis kind of go hand in hand. The ability to look at a thing,
Certainly.
dig a little deeper. Huge fan of that. But sometimes you've had a long fucking day and you just want to relax and chill and enjoy something. And at the end of the day, it's fine. Just enjoy the music.
I couldn't agree more. Turning to Adrade for a second, though, I wanted to share this epigraph because I was skimming through the book, and just a few chapters ago, folks, there's a quote from Dario Adrade herself in an epigraph at the start of the chapter where she kind of lays out her opinion. Quote, "The best art imitates life in a compelling way. If it imitates a dream, it must be a dream of life. Otherwise, there is no place where we can connect. Our plugs don't fit." End quote.
I think I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But to be clear, I think it's because I've kind of recently fallen on this idea that almost all art exists because we struggle to express ourselves in the language and the words that we have, and a dimension that you can give expression is color and art and representation and expression. And you draw the things that are interesting to you. You capture what's in front of you, but you choose not to capture certain things. You tell stories about the things that interest you.
Yeah.
I think what we respond to in art is a recognition of ourselves and of our experience. You see, I've talked about this a lot on this podcast, where someone says, I'm sad, you say, I'm also sad, but you don't necessarily feel in that moment a deep camaraderie. You don't necessarily feel viscerally a simpatico of, we have the same sadness. But then you hear a song written by someone who is sad. You hear a song about sadness that has a little bit of positive and a little bit of anger and it's this mixed up bag of emotions. And you go, holy shit, wait, no, that's the fucking thing I feel. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not alone. There's someone else who has felt this bag of emotions. And I think like that is a lot of art. It's an attempt to express the unexpressible. It's an attempt to step outside of necessarily articulatable language and to say, look at this thing that you experience, this emotion, this scene, this literal still life of fruits on the table, but also this poem that I think captures the unexpressible melancholy that I feel.
Yeah.
And I think if someone does something so abstract that you cannot see any shred of your own human experience in it, I do think that you would struggle to connect with it.
Right.
I have trouble even imagining what that would be, but
right.
I think that's also why she's saying, I mean, if you do bad art, so best art is one that imitates life in a compelling way. I guess she would then say is like the other side of the spectrum is something that doesn't imitate life or imitates life in a drab way, at which point you go, yeah, but that I'm not moved, or I don't know, that just seems like a...
Yeah. Your plugs don't fit. Your human plugs don't fit, like you got the like USA version of the plugs and you're in the UK and you're like, God damn it, I forgot my adapter. And now this art plug won't fit. I agree with you. I think we're very much in the same camp when it comes to this definition of art. Like, how do we define what is and isn't art and what the best art does? I agree with Audrey generally. The best art is the kind of art that imitates or expresses life in a compelling way that speaks to something deeply and human, innately human, something that we maybe don't even always entirely recognize about ourselves. You might look like I was in France last year for your wedding, right? And I went to the water lilies, that room with the water lilies. And like, I don't know, I don't really care about water and or lilies. They're just, but I walked into that room and I don't know what I was feeling, but I like started crying.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed in that room by something. And, even looking back, I don't know what it was, but something in the way that room was structured and those paintings were painted, and just the sort of something about the environment where everyone was very quiet and just soaking it in. Most people didn't have their phone out. There was one lady like live streaming on Facebook, which was annoying, but
yeah.
But so some combination of all of those things like touched me, innately touched something in me that felt very human. And I think that is what O'Drade is getting at, what Frank is getting at, is the best art touches something inside you and speaks to some human sensibility inside you in a way that maybe you don't even recognize, but the plugs, they fit perfectly. I think the question then becomes, what about the things that don't do that, right? What about the things that don't connect with anything human inside of you?
Yeah. I think that there are things like I was thinking about the distinction between a photographer who captures a moment of mundane life, like a street photographer who captures like the guy smoking a cigarette playing chess with in Central Park. And you've seen that picture taken by an amateur that doesn't look good and isn't compelling in some way. And I think
interesting, yeah.
The thing that is that there is something quiet, or you hand your camera to a young niece or nephew and you say, "Oh my God, it's going to be so powerful to see the world through their eyes," and then they're just a bunch of shitty snapshots, and you're like, they're not a very good photographer, are they? We should probably get them in a class or something. But some of that is framed by the way that you think about things and the way that you interpret. And
yeah,
it's interesting because as she even says, the best art imitates life. Implicit within that is what she thinks is the most compelling art. It's the art that serves her purpose the most, right? Our plugs don't fit. That's only if you intend the plug to fit. If you have a plug and an outlet, those things just are. And there's nothing like necessarily good or bad about that. But if you want to charge, you need your plug to fit.
Yeah.
So within that as well is, again, the implicit desire for things to move forward or to work or to change. And a plug that doesn't fit is in some ways compelling if it's a commentary on that we always want our plugs to fit or something like that.
Yeah. And I think the beautiful part of it is nearly infinite version of human plugs exist, right? Because something that speaks to you could utterly be lost on me and vice versa. But that doesn't make the product itself not art anymore, right? Like it's, I think there's also sort of a corporate misconception that like speak to the broadest audience, quote unquote, have as many plugs fit as possible to make the most money, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how we define something that is successful and art. But I think, many of my contrarian friends would argue that like, if someone makes a thing and 99% of people look at it and go, that's terrible, and 1% of people look at it and go, wow,
yeah,
that's incredible. That's art. And I,
Sure.
as much as I love arguing with my contrarian friends, I wouldn't disagree with them on that.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on where you want to dole out the word art. I did have the thought recently because like I was listening to this guy talk about the future of music and how music and visual arts are becoming similar to like printmaking, and like in the age of AI automation, you have the ability now to make fully produced pop songs using these tools with like no trained musicians involved. And yes, it is on the back of stolen creativity, right? It's the voice of some existing singer. It's the instruments trained off of people who spent years and years and years practicing. But those data sets are done. And those tools exist. And you could write new lyrics that you could be the artist who writes the new lyrics, or you could have fucking ChatGPT put together words in an order that hasn't necessarily existed before. And we can get on our soapboxes and go, AI art is slop, but there are top charting musicians and songs right now today that have no human singer or musician or band. And so within the pop sphere of what is popular and what people like listening to, there is not this like clearly discerning, we need the musician to have a soul. The interesting thing for me is that there are artists, and I won't name names, Taylor Swift, who could be automated because they are so clean and so shaped. It's like the mix, the sound, it's so a specific thing. There are other artists, like Olivia Dean is a very new artist. She's winning a bunch of awards and accolades. She is so present in her music as a singer that if you didn't have her as a singer, or Maldive is another example, someone who is like it sounds like Maldive. You would need to literally synthesize that fucking human for it to be even approaching the same degree of like texture to her vocal performance. And that's just not most music, right? Music that I love like EDM and club music, and I love like electronic music. When you have that like girl vocalist who's just like, and you're like, that could be fucking anyone. That doesn't matter. You just need, it could be a guy being just like, it's like done. That music is very automatable in the same way that like a sweater could be made by a factory machine, and it's no longer like, oh, that person's grandmother who hand knit it using her traditional techniques. We're getting to a point where visual and audio music and art is like that and is automatable. And it's going to be interesting to see that becoming a distinguishing feature of like, there are certain types of visual and audio performances that are very hard for LLMs to do. Is that now going to be a distinction where people say, well, this is art and that isn't? Can it be done automated by a machine?
Yeah.
Or does it need a person to be able to be done?
Yeah. And where's that line? You know, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
As the machine gets better and better at imitating the human, how do we make the art more human? And maybe is the answer, make it uglier and make it more full of human mistakes and irregularities, where a machine would sand off all of the edges and make all the pieces line up perfectly. A human would kind of fuck up the edge maybe and be like, whatever, I'll glue it in.
Yeah.
And like maybe the messiness is what is now definable as art, and the over perfection, the sheen of machinery and the perfection of it becomes repellent to our senses, you know?
I mean, listen,
I think within the context of artificial intelligence, this question is fascinating, and I think literally changing in real time. Like, as we are evolving as a species.
Tomorrow, this conversation will be dated.
Like this will be outdated, right?
Yeah.
Like by the time our free listeners on the public feed hear this in 3 months, like this whole conversation will be irrelevant.
They're in like a VR hellscape, like in their bubbles protected.
Okay, all right. Let's put the worms back in the can and try to wrap up this takeaway and land the ship here. I think O'Drade's thoughts here serve as a big clue about another stagnant and problematic aspect of the Bene Gesserit worldview. Because as we've talked about so many times now, the Sisterhood does everything with purpose, with a plan. It has taken months to install Shiana in Tamalane's place.
Yeah.
Everyone had to fucking vote on it again, and probably again, and then again.
Yeah.
The Sisterhood has also, over time, become masters of manipulating human sensibilities, right? That's like the whole gist of the Missionaria Protectiva. We tap into that religious desire of humans to manipulate them. I mean, Central, for example, even in this book, we're told is laid out to perfection, to as close to perfection as can be, to be a self-sustaining system. Mm-hmm. Duncan himself is worried that he is going to lose Marbella once the Sisterhood comes in and sands down all of her rough edges. She will lose the things he loves about her, the messy human things he loves about her.
Yeah.
That is how the Sisterhood operates, right? That rigid worldview has certainly given them so much influence and so much stability. You know, they're one of the few organizations that made it through the 3,500-year rule of the God Emperor and are still around in relatively the same functional format that they were thousands of years ago. So yes, to some extent, this worldview of the Bene Gesserit has worked for them and has been deeply successful. But as we have explored in Heretics and Chapterhouse, it has also blinded them to the value of unknowable things, to chaotic things, to the more human parts of human nature. O'Drade herself asked, quote, "What would Van Gogh have been without his impurities?" End quote.
Yeah.
AI Van Gogh would not have been able to paint those fucking paintings. Those cottages would have been too straight.
The Bene Gesserit would have been like, let's sand those impurities down. Let's get rid of them.
Right.
And then he
Let's
just
get rid of Van Gogh's impurities.
does some boring ass impressionist photos. And you're like, I want expressionism. No.
Yes.
Not in this house.
Exactly. So that embracing of the chaos of human nature is something the Bene Gesserit have really trained themselves away from to too strong an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think bringing it home, this is where O'Drade's admiration of Shiana's sort of simple painting, right? This worm on like a sandy whatever with a person standing in front of it, this sketch. I think it's meaningful for O'Drade to look at that and go, wow, that's amazing. Because the painting seemingly doesn't serve any like huge purpose. I don't think Shiana's trying to make some grand statement from it, even though O'Drade is standing there thinking like, what's the grand statement here? What could she mean by it? Seemingly all it is just an expression of Shiana's feelings. She drew a thing that kind of speaks to her past as a Fremen, to her abilities to talk to worms, to the future of wanting to find a worm on Chapterhouse. And that's maybe all it is. Shiana is able to create art simply for art's sake, without the burden of this, like, we got to have 12 committee meetings about it, and we need to make a 47-step plan to make sure that this lands exactly how we need it to, because it's got to have so much purpose, and it's got to touch every human sensibility that we manufacture it to. That's the Bene Gesserit mindset. Shiana is able to not think like that. And I think this reminds O'Drade that her former pupil is not fully indoctrinated into the Sisterhood's worldview. And that, I think, is like 50% scary for O'Drade and 50% she loves it. Yeah. And I loved this scene for that. And for us to be able to get inside O'Drade's head here, I think pretty powerful writing from Frank to ask some big philosophical questions about art, but also, once again, reveal some things about the Sisterhood and O'Drade.
Yeah, I also, just as we wrap up, I think it's notable that this is O'Drade who's having these thoughts and these kind of observations. I think, were this to come from Scytale, or were this to come from Dama, or were this to come from Logno, or any set of the characters in the book, even Shuang Yu, like members of the Bene Gesserit or Belanda, right? Members of the Bene Gesserit, members of the cast of characters who we have kind of been cued to look at skeptically and listen to skeptically. O'Drade is someone who is often writing very close to Frank's own beliefs, kind of with the mark of, we should take seriously her ponderings. And when she asks these sorts of questions, when she has these thoughts, they are meant to be taken seriously and at, in some ways, face value as like real, worthwhile considerations. Versus like if Lucilla had some of these thoughts, we might go, she's just being kind of weird. That's Lucilla.
Yeah.
You know, she's a weird. I think Frank is, it's clear that Frank has thought a lot about this idea. He's engaged in this conversation. I'm sure he's had many long conversations over glasses of wine with his contemporaries and his friends going, oh, but I think this is art. And I don't think that's art. And I think that we see a lot of this boiled down in O'Drade's perspective. And I really appreciate that, because I do think that it makes her feel like this fleshed out psyche in a way that is so distinct from so many other characters. And I love it. And it's excellent.
Love it. Okay. That is our incredibly dense takeaway. I think we did a pretty okay job trying to stay on the rails there.
So it's only been 30 minutes.
It's only been 30 minutes. Let's take another quick break, folks. Yeah. We have a couple of delicious morsels to chomp down on before we say goodbye and wrap up today's episode. So we'll see you in a minute with our spice morsels.
Welcome back, everybody. Oh, I hope you enjoyed your break, and I hope you're ready to dig into some delicious spice morsel. It's snowy outside. I don't know. Speaking's hard. Our first spice morsel today is grapes. Fine Italian wines. Italian fine wines, even.
Yeah. Wait, before you continue, green or purple?
Purple.
Okay.
Glad we cleared that up. Or red. Aren't there like a bunch of... Anyway, in our last chapter today, with pulpy grapes. In our last chapter today, O'Drade takes Scytale on a chilly walk through the Bene Gesserit vineyards, and we get this excerpt. Quote, "These southern slopes were planted to grapes, crests, and colder northern faces reserved for orchards. improved vinifera. These vineyards, developed by Bene Gesserit gardeners, old vines, roots, gone down to hell, where, according to ancient superstition, they stole water from burning souls. End quote.
Whoa.
What a section.
What a way to describe your orchard.
Series of words.
Imagine your next apple picking orchard, and that's what's on the website. You're like, what the fuck?
Enjoy deep roots, going down to hell to seal water from burning souls. They are Macintosh apples. Yeah. We were every shade of curious having read that paragraph.
Yeah.
So, like good winemakers on a fertile new plot of land, we got to digging. And here's what we found, dear listeners. So, working backwards, the reference to stolen water from burning souls, I expected to stumble upon a treasure trove
something. Yeah.
of stuff. Almost nothing on the internet. Now, part of this is because so much of the language is biblical. I just kept finding Quora entries of people going, why is hell fiery? And stuff like that. Not at all relevant. But there was a Reddit thread from user DarkMind989 asking basically this same thing 5 years ago. And another user, Vanguard3000, shares a quote from a book. This is a 1959 book called The New Larousse Encyclopedia of Mythology that explains the god of the underworld, the Roman god of the underworld, Pluto, quote, received buried treasure. He was then considered the god of agricultural wealth from the center of earth. He exerted his influence on cultivation and crops. End quote. So the idea that this Greek Roman god of the underworld, the god of burning souls and hell, is also the god of agriculture. Maybe that's the connection. Now, all things considered, this is a book, the Larousse Encyclopedia of Mythology, is a book from 1959, so it seems very possible that this book of mythology and Greek mythology might have made its way across Frank's desk at some point in the 20 years before this book was finished. At the same time, that's not a 100% match. So if you out there in listener land know what this reference is, old vines, roots going down to hell where they steal water from burning souls, let us know. But I wanted to talk for a second about improved vinifera because I was like, yeah, what are vinifera? That's kind of cool. Merriam-Webster actually has a definition, vinifera, as, quote, a common European grape, Vitis vinifera, that is the chief source of old world wine and table grape varieties, end quote. And obviously, the Bene Gesserit were like, cool. Let's improve it. Let's make it better. It's not good enough for us.
Right. Sand down those edges.
Sand down those edges. Get rid of them. Now, this is a species of grape. This is a whole category of grapes. And it includes between 5,000 and 10,000 varieties.
Whoa.
So lots of different varieties of this Vitis vinifera. Only a small number, I saw a dozen to 30 or something like that, are actually used in commercial winemaking. Nevertheless, the vast majority, I saw as high as 90% of wine seems to come from this species.
Whoa.
And wineenthusiast.com says, quote, if it comes from Europe, it's likely Vitis vinifera.
Oh.
End quote. That same
Thanks, wineenthusiast.com.
Thanks, not sponsored. So very, very cool. And I did want to point out, part of why I chose this morsel was because during the Fullerton research, when I was going through all of the fun documents that we found, in the contents of Frank's wallet was a, quote, vintage guide to fine Italian wines, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
Our guy Frank was out here trying to fucking know the difference between wines. Here's the first paragraph to cover this pocket-sized guide. Quote, this vintage chart prepared, I should read it in a 1950s. Quote, this vintage chart prepared specifically for the United States by Dr. Pier Garglio, president of the Italian Academy of Vines and Wines, excellent name, Florence, Italy, is his impartial evaluation of these varieties of Italian wines that are generally available in the United States. End quote.
Wow, incredible.
Frank had that in his fucking pocket. And it's so fun. He doesn't fuck around with wine. So when he's writing about it in Dune, he knows what he's talking about. So back to Dune. There isn't a lot to be said from this. This isn't giving us new insight.
Like thematically, right? It's
it's just kind of a fun detail that Frank's putting into the book. But of course, typical Bene Gesserit, they would have old, established human, tied to old Terra. They have these wines, but they've improved them. And of course they have them on Chapterhouse. Of course they do. Now listen, they might not enjoy eating and drinking. They might just be doing everything for nutritional balance and to satisfy their body's needs. But that doesn't mean they're going to settle for whatever shit you buy at Trader Joe's. Okay?
Yo, for real.
For real. They're only European, old world, but improved. So don't go bringing them some $2 Chuck. All right?
No.
Chateau Diane, not in this fucking house. All right? She's not a Reverend Mother. Get her out of here.
Amazing. Great job on that research. Okay, morsel number 2. Folks, let's talk about cyborging him.
Cyborg him!
So obviously chapter 30 ends on this iconic decision by the Mother Superior to save the mortally wounded Clairby with cybernetic technology. So I thought it might be fun to take a look back at the history of the term cyborg in pop culture. Here is a brief overview of what I learned, folks. Way more fascinating than I thought it would be. So the term cyborg was first coined in 1960 by Manfred Clynes and Nathan Klein.
Wow.
In their article titled Cyborgs and Space, which was published in September 1960 in the journal Astronautics.
Can I say much later than I would have expected?
Much later,
I thought
right?
this would
What?
be like a 1920s Russian thing, but no, cyborgs 1960s. That's crazy.
Yeah, the term itself coined.
Yeah, of course.
In 1960.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea, the concept of humans and technology merging, that's been around, since the early 19th century. So Kleins and Klein were actually not sci-fi authors. They were researchers at Rockland State Hospital in Orangeburg, New York. And this article, where they coined the term, was actually about how humans could survive in space. Here's a bit from the article's introduction. Quote, altering man's bodily functions to meet the requirements of extraterrestrial environments would be more logical than providing an earthly environment for him in space. End quote.
Mm-hmm.
So they were sort of positing we should adapt to space and we should not try to force space to adapt to us because that's way harder to do.
Honestly, fair.
Kind of sound reasoning.
That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Now, in case you hadn't put it together, dear listener, the term cyborg is a portmanteau of cybernetics and organism. You smash those two words together, you get cyborg.
Okay.
So the term after 1960 was quickly adopted by sci-fi writers and began to show up the earliest reference I could find was Edmund Hamilton's 1963 short story After a Judgment Day. So just 3 short years after Klein and Kleins coined the term. Frank Herbert, our guy, ever heard of him? He himself used the term in his 1966 novel, The Eyes of Heisenberg, to describe a group of mechanically enhanced humans.
I'm literally reading that right now. That's so funny.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Just 6 years after the term was actually made up.
Holy shit.
Frank Herbert used it in this novel. The concept of cyborgs became widely adapted in sci-fi literature and wider pop culture in the 70s and 80s through lots of hit novels and hit television shows and movies. RoboCop, The $6 Million Man, lots of examples you can point to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, cyborgs are also often central to the cyberpunk genre itself, which also came into popularity during the new wave science fiction movement in the 60s and 70s. So the term cyborg and the cyberpunk genre all kind of lined up and came into popularity in the same couple of decades there between the 60s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a final point that I wanted to make, folks, and this is really important. This will be on the exam, so get your notebooks out. It is important for you not to mix up your sci-fi robot terms, folks.
Yes.
Cyborgs are different from androids or bio robots, okay? Don't be mixing that shit up. Here's the specific definition of what constitutes a cyborg. The term applies to a living organism that has had a function of their body restored or reconstructed via an artificial piece of technology. And this technology has to rely on feedback from the organic body to function in a symbiotic manner. And oftentimes, this artificial installation imbues the cyborg with superhuman abilities that they would not have been capable of doing before the operation. That is when you know it's a cyborg.
Okay.
So I don't want to hear anyone in the chat or anyone in Discord ever mixing that shit up again.
Don't fuck it up. Swear to God, if you call something that's not a cyborg,
yeah.
banned.
If you misuse Android, we're kicking you out of the Discord. All right. Wow, folks. This was a long one. We appreciate the folks in the live chat here on YouTube hanging out with us. As always, with these book club episodes, we have homework for you. For the next episode, make sure that you have read the next 3 chapters. That's 31, 32, and 33. Or if your copy of the book is slightly different from ours, read through the chapter that ends on this sentence. Quote, "You have 90 standard days to get ready," she said. "Not 1 day more."
Whoa.
End quote. Holy shit.
She's talking to the winemakers. She's like, we have such a brunch planned. You've got 90 standard days to get enough wine for everyone. Chilled Chardonnay. The girlies are going to be wanting to drink.
Amazing.
Wow. That's exciting. Okay. Dear listener, before we let you go, we want to remind you of some ways to support us here at Gom Jabbar and a way to keep in touch with us. And of course, the 2 best ways to support what we do here at Gom Jabbar. One is to become a patron over at our Patreon. And the second is to get yourself some Gom Jabbar themed, some Dune themed swag from gomjabbar.shop. Those links are in the show notes, or just tell a friend. Tell a friend about your favorite Dune podcast. Either way, helps us out.
That's right. And of course, a final reminder that we love to hear from you. And the best way to get in touch with us, if you're not in the Discord and if you're not a patron, is to email us, gomjabbarpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts, send us your questions, send us pictures of your cute pets. Oh my gosh, we love those. gomjabbarpodcast@gmail.com is a great way to get in touch with us.
So true. You know, tell us your favorite noun that's become a verb, as a character says to cyborg someone. That's great. Love it. Share your favorite cyborg. Share your favorite portmanteaus. I'm a huge fan of portmanteaus. I think those are cool. It's fun when you don't even know they are, you know?
Yeah.
You know my favorite?
Yeah.
My favorite's actually karaoke. Karaoke is a portmanteau between the Japanese word kara, which is like empty, and oke, which is the Japanese word translation of the English word orchestra. So it's the voiceless, empty orchestra.
Whoa.
And karaoke is a Japanese term, and it combined empty and orchestra. And I'm like, what a cool thing. What is just like a cool little piece of linguistic history. And we're like, karaoke.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, friends, there is no real ending. It's just the place where you stop the recording. But this podcast is always one step beyond logic, so help spread the word of Muad'Dib and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And be sure to check out the other shows on the Lore Party Podcast Network on loreparty.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at lore_party. And of course, we're also on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, cyborg him.
Cyborg. Our new outro. Cyborg him!
Woo!